The chief of the satellite services department in the Radio Communication Bureau of the ITU in Geneva, and he has been kind enough to accept the invitation of the IAF to give us an outline of the outcome of the WRC conference that took place earlier this year in Geneva. Yvon Henry has been with the ITU since 1995, so I would say he's an old hand of frequency issues as applied to satellite services. And previously he had been with Intelsat and with France Telecom before that, so he has a very good knowledge of the satellite services. Without any further delay, we'll pass the floor to Yvon Henry, and we will keep some time available at the end of his presentation for questions that you might have. Yvon Henry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gerard, and good evening to everybody. Well, it's really a privilege for me to be with you there in Napoli, and for the first time to speak to the delegate of the 63rd International Astronautical Congress, and I'm here for sure on behalf of the Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, which currently is at a regulatory meeting in another interesting place, which is in Sri Lanka, and couldn't be with you today. And I would say that ITU has been both a long-term observer and I would say a strong supporter of YAC activities. Having said that, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting ITU for this highlight lecture. And I would like also, firstly, before going in the substance, to thank you all to be in this room. Indeed, this highlight presentation, in addition to be late, which is always kind of difficulty whenever there is a meeting, I would say has to compete with the beautiful sun of Napoli, which is quite difficult to compete nowadays, particularly at this season, has to compete with some reception ongoing in some booth, and I would say that wine of Napoli and some of cuisine of the area are quite great also. And lately, when I was coming there, also has to compete with some mariachi groups that were at the Cafe Hotel. So I would like to thank you very much for having the courage to be there and to listen to this speech. In fact, I will focus my speech on WRC 12 outcome on satellite regulations. However, I would firstly have a few words of introduction on the ITU, International Telecommunication Union, and also on the World Radio Communication Conference mechanism. I would say particularly for those which might be less familiar with ITU and with this process. So, ITU is unique among the UN specialized agency, and this unicity is coming from that ITU is a mix of public and private sector members, including academia. So we have around 193 members. Well, in fact, we have 193 member states. And we also have around 700 members comprising, in fact, all of the world leading ICT operators, equipment manufacturers, software developers, service providers, R&D organizations, and local, regional, and international ICT bodies. I would say everybody dealing with telecommunication in one way or another is participating to the work of ITU. And I think that this mixture of public and private sector is really the great strength of ITU. Point is that I always mention that in any speech when I'm referring to ITU, because very often people are seeing that as this is an organization, the headquarters is in Geneva, then there are the people over there which are making some regulations or etc. No, in fact, as myself, I'm just representing not the ITU, but representing the ITU Secretariat. And whenever we are mentioning ITU, I will say, well, it's not a political slogan, but ITU is you, by the fact that ITU is in fact all of those countries all of those representatives of countries, which could be governmental, which could be in the private sector, which are participating to those to different working groups, and then going together during conference to decide about what would be the best framework for example, for the satellite. And in a way, if we regard the satellite service developments, and since the birth of the very first commercial satellite system in 1960, ITU has been performing, in fact, this vital technical and regulatory coordination and oversight function which is essential to the ongoing growth of the satellite sectors. And this has been done, as I mentioned earlier, in close cooperation with other stakeholders and bodies. We have been able to perform this role in the past, and for sure that will continue also in the future. Well, in a way, on this slide, and I won't go into the detail, but it was just to roughly summarize what I've tried to say with a few words, which is the role of ITU and international regulations, some development of global standards and guidelines, and also one part, like any of the UN affiliated organization, one part which is assistance to administration, and particularly to those of developing countries. And in fact, the overall goal at the end is for sure to have a kind of favorable investment environments for whatever type of satellite, well, I would say here, as we have that at YARC, for whatever type of satellite service you want to provide. It's true that when we talk about ITU also, and when we talk about our role in terms of those regulations regarding satellite and satellite service, it covered all services. As we'll see a little later on in terms of WRC 12 decision, but particularly also when I'll talk a little about what is the radio regulations. In these international regulations, there is no painting of commercial against non-commercial, against scientific, or against governmental or military or whatever. I would say the big principle is, as soon as you're using a frequency to the extent that you've signed constitution and conventions of the ITU, and I would say nowadays 193 member states have signed this constitution and convention, then you abide by a certain regulation, and particularly to declare any of the frequency assignment that you plan to use. There is a little exceptions for some very specific governmental use, but the principle is it should. This is something that should apply to everybody. Oops. And there, well, just to mention, in fact, what you will find in the Constitution, and particularly the key role of ITU is just to ensure that we have a rational, equitable, efficient, and economical use of the radio frequency spectrum by all radio communication services, and that has been also inserted then, including those using the GSO orbit and other satellite orbits, which is something which has been added, I would say, recently. And as I mentioned, within this mandate, we manage the international radio frequency spectrum and satellite orbit. As I said, we manage it as ITU Secretariat, but we are just applying a regulation that you, in a way, through your country and member state, decide during the WRCs. Well, just also to mention one important what I would say regulations. Every organization has its red book, and well, ITU has his red book, and well, I would say I don't know why it has been chosen to be red at the origin, but let's say that it the radio regulations, and it's true that these radio regulations was first issued in 1906. it's true that at that time he was just looking at some safety and maritime telegraphic issue, and then it just in the 60s that was added a big part regarding satellite, and we must say that proportionally vis-à-vis the very beginning, nowadays it's certainly the part which is dealing with the satellite which is the biggest part of the overall radio regulations, and certainly at some stage the more complex. And in a way, what we find in this radio regulation is on one hand frequency and spectrum allocations, table of frequency spectrum allocations. So we have a big part of this regulation, which in fact are table where you could find the different category of radio communication services and the band to which those services would apply. There is also, in a way, through those regulations, the right and obligations of the member administration to obtain access to the orbit spectrum, and through some procedure of coordination and notifications, type of word that we are using, notification of frequency assignments. In fact, the overall goal is to declare some frequencies, to go through some discussion to ensure that, in a way, those frequencies are compatible between themselves, and at the end of the day is to get an international recognition of those frequencies by recording those frequencies in the Master International Frequency Register, the MIF, a big book, where in fact as soon as you get through all of those processes, which could take a lot of time, then you have an international recognition on the use of those frequencies, and you may have also a certain level of protection. And not to forget that the radio regulations are in fact is a binding international treaty. Well, it's always good to make some publicity for your own organizations, but it was just I didn't take it for the list, but for the title, some success stories, so it's great. No, just to mention that a lot of decisions that have been taken during the last years have had an impact on the development of many services which are going, that we are using nowadays. But please don't take this list as an exhaustive one, and don't try to put any priority in terms of the work of the ITU for some services against some other services. In fact, ITU community has to take account of all services in all bands, and we'll see regarding the discussion that occurred during WRC 12 that we go up nowadays 3000 gigahertz. Just a few words, in fact, now about the WRC preparation. I can understand that you will say, well, this slide is quite complex to understand, and in fact it just on one single slide tried to show all of the stakeholders which are taking part in the preparatory work of a conference. As I mentioned to you, the radio regulations is a binding treaty, and in fact this treaty is reviewed roughly every 3 to 4 years during those WRC. It's not completely reviewed, but what we can see is that there are more and more part of this radio regulation which is reviewed, and what is presented there is just in fact to show how this preparation for WRC is going on. And I would say it's true that everything is based on proposal or submissions which are done by administrations following an agenda, and we'll see how the agenda is discussed or at least agreed upon. But there is an agenda for a conference, and then there is proposals which are to be done by administrations. And what's quite important, at least that we've seen during the last decades, which are becoming more and more important, is the preparation which is done at the regional level. And I've quoted on one side of this slide the main regional organizations covering roughly all parts of the world, which are in fact working together in order to facilitate the discussion during the WRCs. And the output is in fact, as you see, the final act, and the final act is a certain number of resolution recommendations, and in fact, which has a direct, which are in fact modifications also to the radio regulations. So if we try to move and to have a few words and then results about the last WRC. So the last WRC 12 was held in Geneva for 4 weeks from the 23rd of January up to the 17th of February, and they gathered a record number of more than 3,000 delegates, which were representing 165 ITU member states. Well, which is quite a great number because it's 165 against 193. And in addition to that, there was a lot of observers from the private sectors and international organizations. I would say that people were quite courageous to be in Geneva in February this year, just because it happens to have been one of the coldest periods for the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years in Geneva. On the other hand, you would say it didn't have anything to do outside of the conference center, so it was good for people to continue to work, to work. And in fact, as always after a conference, it was said to be a success. I said, well, I wouldn't judge that it was a success by myself, being from the secretariat, but at least it seems that people were happy to a certain extent. But what was quite interesting is that there were 33 items on the agenda of the conference, and items on many different issues, and we could say that to a certain extent the conference is a success by the fact that all decisions on those 33 items were taken in full consensus without any vote, and that which illustrates once again the success of this multi-stakeholder approach, which is used by ITU in the preparation and in the decision-making process of all conferences. Right now we'll move to some detailed decision of WRC 12. I would admit that it might be, maybe it's my poor English, boresome, cumbersome, or whatever for some of you, and for one simple reason, is that, those WRC conference, those type of conference, like some other, on the contrary of some other ITU conferences that would say that are more on a political level, or any conference that might be at a political level, those conferences like the WRC are really taking a decision on detail on detail issue, and so you have to plunge in the detail in order to feel, in fact, the importance of those conferences. And I may admit that if you're not familiar with the detailed issue itself, you may say, okay, it's good, they have added some bounds. I don't understand what is this table. I don't really understand what was behind, but at least maybe some of the people which are more familiar with the service that we are talking of about will see that in detail. So as I said, let's go now and to the different subjects. When I try to get there, in a way, I try to a certain extent to say, well, is there any logic that I could go in order to interest people in one way or another? So I spent some time on it, and I found at the end of the day that, there is no logic, and there is no logic in any of the agenda items which are decided. So I always said, let's have my engineering approach. Let's go item by item. So we'll jump from one issue to another issue, and to a certain extent, in a way, this is the way to do it. Well, I promise you that we are jumping in the detail, and here, one of the first issue, and I'm just here presenting some of the issues which are dealing with space, generally speaking. And there, I would say this issue was quite interesting because we were looking at the edge of whatever could be called frequencies or regulation for frequencies. That the part above 275 gigahertz, which was going up to 1,000 gigahertz and which has been extended to 3,000 gigahertz. So in a way there was this question at the conference. There have been preparatory work on it, and I would say what you can see there is whatever result, saying that okay, the regulations right now is covering frequency up to 3,000 gigahertz, and some of the footnote as a provision 565. We call that footnote to the table of frequency allocations, which is in fact given some explanations about the frequency which are more preferable for some services. And here we are talking about some passive services, preferably between 275 and 1,000 gigahertz. Although there is always exception, like in any agreement, where you could have also some very specific active application, but roughly it's for passive. And then I would say decision was over 1,000 up to 3,000 gigahertz. Well, passive, active were in the hand of, in a way, more in the hand of you, in terms all of developers or any new development and new services. So I think that was a good point, just to see that, well, WRC is also that. Well, next issue. Yeah, in fact, that was an agenda item 1.6, and this agenda item has also another issue, which was at least possibility to have any procedure for free space optical links. Well, I would say that here there have been some discussions, but what could we say? Either WRC12 community was either too shy to explore this further at this stage. Also, we heard around about optical space system to be soon developed, or maybe WRC12 was really convinced that it was too early to figure out what could be possible constraints for the development of free space optical links. So the result was, although there have been work done in the preparatory for the preparation of this conference, the outcome of this particular subject was no change, and we suppressed the resolution which was asking for studies on this issue, and I would say low profile for the time being on this issue in ITU. Well, okay. Agenda item 1.7 was in fact was dealing with the long-term spectrum availability and access to spectrum necessary to meet the requirement for the aeronautical mobile satellite service. It's true that those discussions about aeronautical mobile satellite service, route air, are quite important. In fact, we will all feel this importance because very often we are taking planes and we want to ensure that whatever security or whatever frequencies are used in line with those planes are okay. And in fact, well, to a certain extent, you will have access to those presentations, and except if there's any question at some stage. I won't go to specify in fact in detail what was agreed upon. It just that to a certain extent, for those which are flying a lot, they could be reassured that IMSR service are given priority in terms of spectrum requirements, and they are also given priority access and immediate availability against any other mobile satellites services, and that also the mobile satellite services should not cause any unacceptable interference to those IMSR services. And what's quite interesting also is that on those particular issues, there have been, in a way, for for the first time, the possibility to call for what we call reassessment meeting, which means that if there were, in a way, continuing disagreements on the mobile satellite service requirements vis-à-vis the AMSR, there were this possibility to call for those meetings, called reassessments meeting, with the participation of the ITU Radio Communication Bureau in order to find solutions. Next issue, well, was in fact to consider, I hope it's the good one, yes, was in fact to consider primary allocation to the Space Research Service, Earth to Space, within the band 22.55 to 23.15 gigahertz. Anyway, preparatory work was to provide this additional allocation, and it was something that was agreed by the conference. Like always, it's not always a clear agreement. When I say a clear agreement, it's not always a black and white. It's just that it has been agreed. However, there are some constraints about and restriction on the implementation of Earth stations. But on the other hand, the fact that you respect those restrictions would permit you not to have to coordinate with the terrestrial services of other countries. So, on one hand, those restrictions are acceptable and facilitate to a certain extent the development of space research in those bands. Next issue was dealing with protection of primary service in the band 37-38, and in particular Space Research Service from interference that was resulting or possibly resulting from aeronautical mobile service operations. And there, clear also decision by the conference. I would say this protection of all primary services, including space research, has been achieved through the fact that the AMSS operation has been removed from the band 37-38 megahertz. Well, those issues that I've presented to you so far were generally issues regarding new allocation and or at least to facilitate some sharing of existing networks within existing allocations. Well, this issue here, in fact, was quite interesting because that was to decide on some spectrum usage in the Ka band, and particularly in the band 21.4-22 gigahertz for the broadcasting satellite services, and the associated feeder link in region 1 and 3. Well, for those which might be less familiar, what we call region 1 in the ITU regulations are in fact Europe, Africa, and Russia. Region 2, Americas, and region 3, Asia Pacific. So the issue was just this issue regarding this particular band was not touching the Americas, but was just dealing with well, the rest of the world except Americas, and was dealing with the broadcasting satellite service in the 21.4-22 gigs. The reason why this issue was on the agenda is that there have been an habit, or a bad habit maybe, that whatever bands is allocated to the broadcasting satellite service should be managed through plan. And I would say that because this issue was there were discussions that this particular band in Ka, 21.4-22, might have also to be managed through plan, like other BSS bands. And in a way, the issue that was chosen was not to go through plan, but to go through the normal type of procedures, which is, well, first arrived, first served. In fact, what it means is that you coordinate or you discuss with anybody which is before you to find a solution, however, with some specificity. And when I put issue A, B, and C, it's just the three aspects of the use of this particular band that have been studied and looked more carefully during the conference. On issue A, that was in fact whatever procedure should exist for the sharing between the BSS satellite networks between themselves, so intra-service issue, and in a way the WRC12 invented a new concept of special procedures for newcomers. In fact, and for those newcomers, which means any administrations that would not have at this stage access at all to any of those bands, might have would have some priority in processing a satellite network in those bands, and in a way the priority would be that they would be processed a little in advance of some others. So, without entering into detail, that was in fact a new concept that was introduced for these particular bands. When you see due diligence also, well, due diligence in the radio regulations refer to a certain number of information that operators and administration has to provide to prove at some stage that the frequency assignments that they declare to have been brought into use are really into use, and they have to provide certain information and detailed information on the satellite which are operating those frequencies. And so this is a due diligence process which exists for all bands. Well, most of the bands, in fact, for fixed satellite service, broadcasting satellite service, and mobile satellite service, GSO and non-GSO. And in a way, in those particular bands, 21.4, 22 gigs, it was agreed that there will be additional due diligence information to be provided, or additional proof that you really brought into use those frequency assignments, with one quite interesting approach, which is also a first in any regulations with implication of the Bureau and within the ITU. It will be that, in a way, when you will declare a satellite, when you will declare a satellite networks into use in this band 21.4, 22, you will have to provide detailed information about the satellite itself that is operating those bands, and the ITU or by itself will put an ID number, an ITU ID number on this satellite. And it's true that this is a completely new concept which will just apply to these particular bands. But at least this is something quite interesting, which open, I would say, new thought, certainly for the future, and for expanding this type of idea outside of the 21.4, 22 gigs bands. I would say that it's something also very sensitive, because at some stage, I would say the ITU or the radio regulations, or the fact that you are in a way protecting your asset by recording the frequency assignments in the master register, I would say the ITU is not there to follow the operational satellite. I think that there is a lot of database that exists on the web, outside, etc., just to see on a day-to-day basis how satellites are moving, and definitely it's not the role of ITU, and it's not the role of the radio regulations to follow that. I would say in the radio regulations, in a way, whenever you try to get protections for some frequency assignment for satellite networks, it's true that what you're looking at is to have this protection for the 15 to 20 years to come, at least 15 years of your satellite life, and replacement satellite, to the extent that you're using the same parameters. So it's true that the ITU is looking at a framework of frequency for the 15 to 20 years, and ITU is not there to look at a day-to-day basis how satellites are moving. However, it's quite interesting also, in order to get to continue to get your right, that you have some obligations, and those obligations is a continuing use or operation of those frequencies, and in accordance, in fact, with the parameters that you have recorded. And it's true that how to handle both issues at the same time. The introduction of this ITU ID for satellite may be an interesting point. as I said, there were issue B also, always an issue regarding one big part of discussion during WRC. This means mainly to find new allocation. And let's put that way. As you can see there on issue B, that was to find a new allocation for the fixed satellite service that will be used for the feeder links of the broadcasting satellite service in the 21.4/22. And so there were different rounds that were chosen in region 1 and region 3. And the last issue, well, just to go quickly, is as always in terms of sharing, you have to see whatever could be the issue of sharing of your system vis-à-vis similar system. That was the issue A, and some of the procedures. And there is also this issue of sharing with other service, and particularly with terrestrial services. And there, I would say, without entering into the detail, as a techniques which is quite working well. It's in fact, this sharing is based on the power flux density limits that have to be respected. So in a way, if you don't eliminate at a level which is more than a certain power, you may, as a satellite, offer the service, and on the other hand, you are not interfering with the terrestrial people. So both people are happy, ignore themselves to the extent that everybody respects those criteria. Well, we were 1:30, so we are going step by step through this agenda. Another agenda item which was in fact regarding some frequency allocation, and this time that was regarding the radio determination satellite service, and that was to consider the primary and secondary existing allocation, and to try to get a worldwide global primary allocations. And one more time, I would say that conference was successful at the end of the day to ensure that there would be from now on a worldwide primary allocation to the radio determination services. And as you can see there, well, it's just a translation with caps and not caps. Caps meaning that you have a primary allocations in the table of frequency allocations. So that was just that there was a primary allocation in the Americas, but this allocation with some restriction was secondary in the rest of the world. And right now it's primary all over the world, so which means that it could facilitate the development of our DSS system worldwide. Well, regarding right now the weather, and as I was talking about the sun in Napoli, hopefully it will last up to the end of the week. There was also issues regarding some allocations. One more time on a globally over all of the world, and it was to add some global primary MedSat allocations, limited there to non-GSO MedSat system in some band. And one more time, I would say this was achieved by the conference. An issue of interest where the word no change in fact means a big battle in perspective. As you may know, in a way, there is one issue about mobile satellite service and the need to get more bands for mobile satellite service, and it was the agenda item 1.25 at the conference. A lot of work has been done in the preparatory in the preparation of the conference by all countries and also by the regional groups in order to try to find where some of the bands could be could fit in fact the requirements of the mobile satellite service. And in fact people were focusing on 4 to 16 gigahertz bands. Well, in a way, je suis décalé. Sorry. So, merci Gérard. So Just about, yes, 125. That was this issue of additional bands for mobile satellite service. And I think that there were no agreement on any band to be found between 4 GHz and 16 GHz for those mobile satellite service. So, as I mentioned, there was long sensitive issue and discussion about it. However, the issue is not yet finished. Just because people found that there were big sharing difficulties to find any band that could be allocated, any existing band that could be allocated to mobile satellite service in the 4 to 16 GHz. So no allocation at WRC12. However, the next bands on which people will focus will be the K-band and 22 to 26 GHz bands, and there is one agenda item at the next conference, WRC 15, in a way to consider new allocation to the MSS in this band. So continuing discussion, continuing sensitive issue. However, right now a little higher in the bandwidth. Then I would say during conference, one more time, one important issue and agenda items are regarding bands, and one other parts during which in fact are quite important during conference, and for which a lot of time is taken is for whatever is the regulations. And I would say particularly the satellite regulations. As I mentioned to you, if you look at the red books, the radio regulation now, my feeling is that you have roughly 70% of all of the regulations which in a way or others are dealing with satellite. And in fact, there have been a long series of change and agreements and improvement to the applicable regulations. Which in fact are all around one issue, is that the right of access to the orbit spectrum resourced by everybody, and also the insurance that, as I mentioned to you, in a way by applying those procedures you may acquire some rights, and through those rights, by being recorded in the master registers, you acquired a certain level of you acquire an international recognition, and also depending of the procedures that have to be applied for the bands that you're using, a certain level of protections. So those are the rights, and roughly the rights said, I'm here, anybody that would come after me would have to come and discuss with me. First right, first serve as generic approach. However, what everybody what a lot of people are forgetting about, it's like for any regulation, is that on one hand you have rights, on the other hand you have also obligations. And one of the main obligations regarding the use of this spectrum is that when you acquire the right, you have to use it, and you have to prove that you are using it. And so they have a lot of issues regarding the bringing into use of satellite, regarding the continuing use of satellite, and regarding how we define all of those concepts. And this has come as a consequence of some work that has been undertaken by the Radio Communication Bureau for the last 3 to 4 years, and coming to a point where we found that there was a lot of satellite networks which were declared, brought into use, which had all protections, all international recognition in the master registers, but for which there were no satellite at all. Whatever we can call paper satellite, or we can call fictitious assignments in the master register. And so, well, we ask ourselves the questions: either there is a new technology, the stealth satellite, or stealth satellite that maybe we are not aware of, or there is something wrong with that. And so decided step by step to become a little more nasty with administration and operators, and asking really all of them to say, okay, no problem for you to keep your right, but please prove that you are really using those frequency assignments. And in fact, all of that approach by the Bureau triggered a lot of questions, and for which there have been some response which have been brought by this conference. And I think that it's a first milestone in that direction. Please see also that not every of those decisions are perfect. I would say they are going in the right directions, like any regulations, as soon as you have a regulation in place, everybody try to see what is the trick, how to treat these regulations. And there are means to do it. So it's not perfect, but it was quite interesting to see that for the first time, people were going in a direction to try to improve a little this reality about the bringing to use and continuing use of frequency assignments. Here are in fact, whatever 8 most important or some of the most important issues that have been discussed at the conference, and going from some issues which are more technical, is that so far, in fact, the coordination arc approach. What is coordination arc approach? It just means that for any satellite networks which is using the same frequency bands that another satellite which is within a certain arc, you have to coordinate. What means you have to coordinate? It's just that there is potential for interference. So please discuss and see if it's really real or not. And so there have been some arc which were in a way agreed some years ago, saying that, for example, if you're using C-band, any satellite which are using C-band within an arc of 8 degrees would have to discuss or to coordinate. And it was it was 10 degrees for C-band, and it was 9 degrees for Ku-band. And it's true that people try to say that, well, it's too much. In a way, we can really coexist with smaller arc. And I think that definitely a bigger reduction in the arc of coordination should have been agreed upon by the conference. Because it's true that nowadays, I would say, in Ku-band, for example, whatever is over 4 or 5 degrees, and here I'm giving margin, should not lead to discussions. And just because the coordination nowadays is a matter of 1 or 2 degree separations, which mean that coordination is possible, but certainly with a certain number of constraints on both. So let's put this way. It was a first good step and an encouraging one, but I would say for the next conference, but the arc is still too big. In any case, there are studies going on in order to ensure that we may reduce this arc. Well, without entering into some of the detail, but particularly so far, coordination, in a way, at the very beginning, coordination was indicated to be between administrations, and then at the last conference, it was decided that coordination will be between administration, however, that a list of satellite networks with which coordination will be required will be also provided, but for information only. Let's say that this time, conference decided that the list of satellite network with which coordination is required will be a mandatory list. So no longer for info only, but it will be in a way, it will be the formal list of coordination with which you have to coordinate. I think that was certainly one of the most important issues that was discussed during the conference. That was what is the meaning of bringing into use, and when could we consider that a satellite has been brought into use. I would say to a certain extent it could be curious to think that this is an issue, because you said, well, if I want to provide my service, I brought into use some of my assignments, and then on a continuing basis I'm beginning to offer the service. The issue is that it was quite important, this notion of bringing into use, because it has to be related to another provision of the radio regulations that permit anybody to suspend the use of a frequency assignment for a certain time. And let's put it this way, you may play with a suspension of your assignment for a certain time, and to a certain extent, continue to get the protections, although in a way it's a paper satellite without nothing in place, without any satellite which are operating. And with this paper satellite, you may prevent, through coordination, any others with a genuine project to come in. So that was quite important to define what is bringing into use. And I think that, well, as I mentioned, nothing is perfect, but at least it's a first step. What was recognized as bringing into use was to have a satellite at the orbital position for a continuous period of 90 days. So you have to have a satellite 3 months at one orbital position, and in addition to that, you have to have a satellite with the capability to transmit and receive in the frequency bands that you have declared. When we say with the capability to transmit and receive, it doesn't mean that you have transmitted or received in those bands. Let's put it this way: you may have a satellite there for which you use the TT&C to maintain this position in post for 3 months, and it will be considered, well, to the extent that this satellite has also the capability to transmit in C and Ku band, for example, if it's the frequency band of your satellite networks, then it will be then the regulation that say that your satellite will be considered as brought into use. As I said, well, we have had a lot of questions saying, well, even if I brought a nudging satellite end of life, which certainly has some C and Ku, if I continue to take my example of CKU, which has certainly some of CKU band transponders, well, that has been out of order for years, but I bring this nudging satellite there. I am successful in keeping this satellite for 3 months with the TT&C at the position. Would you say that it's a bringing into use of my satellite networks? Well, strictly speaking, you may say yes. On the other hand, because the BR is always trying to ensure that in fact there's not too much trick of the radio regulations, there have been some other discussions and agreements done by the conference about the fact that in addition to be a satellite, you may ask questions about the satellite, and you may at some stage, if we found that at some stage it's an nudging satellite for which there is proof that the C and Ku transponders that were on the satellite were out of order, we will certainly come back to the administration and say no, we cannot consider it. But let's put it this way, just to see that you see that people really try to get a definition, but as any definition could have some trick behind. Just to mention that most of the decisions which were taken by the conference, WRC 12 will enter into force on the 1st of January 2013. So for the time being, not yet there. So, but I think that this bringing into use was certainly one of the most important discussions by the conference. Another quite important discussion, which we could say pro and cons about it, was in fact to extend the suspension period to 3 years. So far, as soon as you make all your paperwork in a way to record and to have the protection of your satellite network, then you launch a satellite, you bring the satellite, the frequency into use, and then you're offering the service. Whatever could happen with your satellite, and there was a provision in the radio regulation that we're saying that, okay, if at some stage you have to stop, the operation of your satellite has to be stopped for any reasons, you may have a period of 2 years during which, in a way, although there is nothing, it could back to a paper satellite, although there is no satellite, however, your right will continue to be taken into account. And I would say that this 2-year period was extended to 3 years. On the ground that it's very difficult if you have to launch a satellite to do it within 2 years. Let's say that 3 years it's feasible, 2 years it was quite difficult. So if it's a genuine genuine, I would say, problem with your satellite on orbit, and that you ask for some period to launch a new satellite, I would say in that particular case, it's okay, the 3 years. The problem that here, it would apply to any cases, and so we'll see, as it's applied also as of 1st of January 2013, we'll see how it's used by administration and operators, and hopefully how it's used and not abused. So that was one of the other issues. Well, one other provision, interesting provision in the radio regs, that this provision that gives the right to the Radio Communication Bureau to ask administrations to provide some detailed information about the continuing use of some frequency assignments. If from any information, reliable information, the Bureau feel that some of the frequency assignments are not brought into use. And so, to a certain extent, there were some clarification to be provided to those to this particular provision of number 13.6, and particularly the responsibility between the Bureau and the Radio Regulation Board, which in fact Radio Regulation Board is roughly the Board of Appeal within the ITU and within the radio communication, within the radio communication sector, is a Board of Appeal of any administrations against any decision by the Radio Communication Bureau. An administration could appeal that decision by the Radio Communication Bureau in front of the Radio Regulation Board. And so the issue was so far and up to the end of the year, if the Radio Communication Bureau, which is the ITU Secretariat, I would say, feel that there are some frequency assignments which are not brought into use, and if any response by administration was not satisfactory, the Bureau could decide to suppress satellite networks. And then this decision was to be, in a way, this decision was to be confirmed by the Radio Regulation Board. In a way, this time, it's the contrary. In a way, the Bureau will decide to be cancelled, but the definite decision will have to be taken by the Radio Regulation Board, which means that at the end, this satellite network will kept alive up to the time of the decision of the Radio Regulation Board. So some of the change. Going quite quickly now on some of the last one, just to say that, well, as ITU, as an international organization, we know what means 21st century also, so we try to get into using modern means of communications, and mainly I think that we're working on some exchange between administration operator and the ITU through web interface. And maybe within those 5 minutes, maybe a few words on another issue that was deeply discussed during the conference, a very sensitive issue, which was regarding the interference. And in fact, in a way, during WRC 12, there have been another group of the plenary that was established to discuss the possible modification to this Article 15, which is on interference. In fact, that was this group was created to take account of some proposals that were done by 15 European countries, and then there was also the opinion of some member states. And the discussion was focusing on the possibility of modifying this Article 15 on interference. And there have been a lot of debates, a lot of discussions, and I would say that in a way those are the results and some of the modification that has been agreed. But I would say that if we really read the words as those words existed before and the new wording of this Article 15, for me it will be a kind of no change in terms of the regulation itself. However, at least there were two questions that were discussed during the conference, and that was quite important. Well, the first question requested the confirmation that any transmission which has the intent to cause interference to station of other administration is an infringement to the Constitution Convention of the ITU. And that was agreed. And the second question also requested that any station which is operating on the territory of an administration, any of those stations is under the authority of this administration, even if this station is not authorized. And that was also confirmed, since the authority of an administration of the country having jurisdiction over any stations applied throughout its territory. So I would say there have been some interesting discussion regarding this issue. Unfortunately, let's put this way, it might not have been transferred in really improving text. However, this is an ongoing issue. Just to finish now, just to say that as any conference, one task of a conference is to decide about the agenda of a future WRC, future WRCs, and there were 93 contributions at this WRC 12 for the WRC 15 agenda. More than 100 meeting hours, 28 documents, and at the end of the day, there have been an agenda, a draft agenda that has been agreed. And in a way, through the presentation, you will see all of those new issues, and particularly regarding space, which would have an interest. Maybe. Yeah, maybe just one resolution that could talk to you certainly here, and to which I would like to draw particularly your attention. It's the resolution 757 on the regulatory aspect for nano and pico satellite. My feeling is that this is an issue that would have to be seen at WRC 18, but my feeling is that it might be too late. Regarding all of the development that there are now with the nano and pico satellite, and certainly that any I was to use the word regulation, but I know that it frightens anybody. I would say any framework for the use of those nano and pico satellite would be needed, and I think that Jack and many of you which are here are certainly there and prepared to work of this international framework that would prevent any problem for the future. And so, well, just about the working parties. And just to finish, and well, thank you for your patience to be there and to have been all through all those very different issues. Thanks a lot.
No? Oh yeah, okay. It's a little bit slow. But thank you, Yvon, for your presentation. We are very late, so and some people may want to catch the 7:30 bus back to the city. So if anybody has a very pressing question, I think we can take one. Lobos Perec.
We received a lot of information. We received a lot of information which we could not note. Where is such information available? That's question one. And question two is, does the ITU has any technical means to check whether administrations comply with the decisions? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, in fact, all of this information, the result of conference, are in fact available on the IT website. It's true that there were discussions about free access also to the radio regulation, and I think that it was agreed that there will be a free access to the electronic version of the radio regulations. If you want it on paper for work, okay, it will have a cost, but all of those information are available free of charge on the IT website. So it might not be always easy to find it, but if at some stage you have any difficulty, please send me a mail, and I will direct you through this website. Regarding right now the second questions, it's true that the ITU and the Radio Communication Bureau has no monitoring stations, has no means at all in a way to, by itself, to verify that information is true or not. However, I would say at some stage, it's true also that the conference give to the Secretariat, I would say, the possibility to ask and to request some more detailed information from operators and from administrations about the satellite, meaning that if the Bureau has still some doubt after having received those information, or if to a certain extent those information are not satisfactory, we can escalate. And I would say escalation means for us to suppress the network. So that's on one hand. And on the other hand, I have been also I've been also initiating some discussion with the monitoring stations of the international monitoring system in order, in a way, and we are working on a kind of memorandum of understanding with all of those monitoring stations in order to involve those monitoring stations to have more direct link with those monitoring stations on two issues. One, the issue of interference, which is the most important, but on the other hand, also once about the verifications that there is satellite at some position, that those satellites operate in those frequencies. So, to be short to your question, we don't have the means, but we are working now on means to have access to those information in a more formal way, in order to ensure that if we say to an administration, there is no satellite, we say, and those proofs are coming from monitoring observations, but monitoring observation with an ITU stamps. So, which means that then anybody could contest, but they could go to the Radio Regulation Board to conference. But we are going in that direction to ensure that whatever is set into use should be into use. It's a long-term approach, but I hope that within a few years, some of the results will be apparent in the terms that there will be less fictitious assignments said to be used. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Yvon. And I think we have to close down.